Hi Dave, back with you again. As promised, this is the follow-up uh, update to my vinyl video, in which I mentioned I would be doing a separate one dedicated to recent CD finds. If you've no interest in CDs, I don't know, you might keep looking if you want, but or you can move on. But all of the CDs I'm going to show here are all of them are charity shop finds, and as I explained in my last vinyl video, charity shops, for those who aren't aware, are thrift shops, or again, as they're called in the United States, Goodwill shops. Basically, where people get rid of stuff they don't want. Now, you do find a lot of CDs now, much more than vinyl. Vinyl finds are getting, I think, increasingly hard to find in charity shops, but they're still pretty much a gold mine when it comes to CDs. Yeah, people are getting rid of a lot of CDs, I find, and you can pick up a lot of great stuff, a lot of great music really cheaply. I think it's a golden age for CDs, but which may not last, I should say a golden age for finding CDs in thrift/stroke charity shops. But okay, so most of these are fairly recent. Some of them go back a few months. I'll just start off with one which I picked up quite some time ago. It's going back a few months. This is by Witold Lutozlowski, and the Lutozlowski, a avant-garde 20th century Polish composer, merged pretty much, one of those school of post-war modern classical composers. This is very much kind of very much reminds me of Ligeti, that Hungarian guy who was kind of best known for the music that appeared in 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is very much kind of similar stuff. Venetian Games, the title that's kind of in French, but if you're any interest in late 20th century avant-garde classical, this guy's name will come up, and not that easy to find in the wild. I only have about 3 CDs in total by him, all of which I found in charity shops. So actually, yeah, I should point out this is volume 2, so there's a volume 1 to this as well, and this is on a label called Polski Nagrania. So this is a Polish label. So yeah. Moving on now, at a totally different location, fairly recently, I made this very interesting find. Kevin Coyne. Kevin Coyne is somebody who I've talked about in the VC. Now I have a few items by him on vinyl, but it's the first time I've picked up a CD by him. This is a 1990 reissue of his second solo album, which originally came out in 1973 on Virgin Records. The case is a bit battered, unfortunately, but yeah, this is one of his best albums, I think. It's called Marjorie Razorblade. Sorry, I forgot to. Marjorie Razorblade, his second solo album, originally came out in '73. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kevin Coyne. One of these very kind of idiosyncratic singer-songwriters who recorded on the Virgin label in the '70s. It's kind of hard to categorize. Yeah. got this very distinctive voice. Lyrics, a lot of his lyrics deal with the issue of mental illness, which he used to be, I think he worked as a psychiatric nurse, and he drew on a lot of the experiences which crop up in his lyrics. So yeah, so you don't see him in the wild too often, so that was a nice find. This I'd say needs no introduction. Tom Waits' Nighthawks at the Diner. I found this quite recently while browsing. I'm sure you're probably all familiar with this album. It came out in, I think, 1975. I think it was his third album. It was recorded, I don't think it was actually recorded live, but it was recorded in front of an audience, an invited audience. So it does have a very much of a live feel to it. Very, very jazzy. Very much a kind of, it does have that kind of feel where, you know, it's recorded in one of these kind of little smoky jazz clubs or something, and there's a lot of rapport, you know, with the audience and stuff. But yeah, Nighthawks at the Diner, which, you know, references that famous painting, Edward Hopper, I think it was. Now this is something I found the other day for 50 cents, and this is Fela Kuti, Fela Ransome Kuti, and Nigeria 70, and he's someone you don't find too often in charity stroke thrift shops. This is the 69 Los Angeles sessions. I'm not sure if these had been previous. Yeah, I think maybe they had been issued at some point. I'm not 100% sure, but this consists of these sessions which were recorded in 1969 in Los Angeles, and also some bonus material which had been previously unreleased, which were recorded between 64 to 68. Now those are quite interesting, you know, because you don't often get to hear that really early stuff, you know, kind of early jazz influenced stuff which were recorded very early in his career. So there's some interesting stuff on there. What label is this actually on? Ransome Records. So yeah, so Fela Kuti. Always definitely grab him if you see him, if you see his stuff going cheap, which is rather uncommon, I must say. Now these are all part of a bunch of records, bunch of CDs, which I found in the same charity shop. I got them all at a discount, so I got them all for less than €1. Now there's a couple of very nice early Baroque music CDs. This is on Harmonia Mundi. Harmonia Mundi being a French label which specialises in early and Baroque music. So this is Heinrich Schütz, a German composer of the 17th century, pretty much composed mostly religious choral music. Yeah, so I nearly always grab Harmonia Mundi when I see it, because it really is you know, they really do fantastic recordings. The other item I picked up, which is I'm very pleased with, is this. This is Antonio Caldara, Italian composer, early 18th century. I think he was recorded around 1700, or not recorded, but composed, should I say. Maddalena Piete de Cristo, which is something to do with the crucifixion. The Pieta, I think. This is a superb recording, actually. It's actually, this CD is pretty sought after, and this goes for quite, it's quite, you know, quite sought after by you know, Baroque music fans. This particular recording, it's a double CD. And comes with this really nice booklet. Yeah, I think the cheapest copy of this that's up on Discogs at the moment is €10, and that's without the booklet and the slipcase. So yeah, so it's quite a nice find, and it's superb recording as well. So very pleased to pick that up. Now also I was very pleased with this one. Now this is the soundtrack to the movie There Will Be Blood. Original music by Jonny Greenwood. Jonny Greenwood of Radiohead. Yeah, I think this is a superb movie. It really is, I think, one of the best movies come out of Hollywood, I think, in the last, definitely since the turn of the millennium. I don't know, but most of you have probably seen the film. Yeah, excellent movie and excellent soundtrack by Jonny Greenwood. Weirdly enough, somebody wrote what looks like I think it's a recipe or a shopping list. I thought at first that was notes, the album notes, but no, somebody actually wrote that with a biro. 100 grams of butter, chilled cubes. It's like, it's quite funny. Okay, another film soundtrack. This is to a movie called Underground, which is a Serbian movie, I think, which came out in the 90s. Yeah, Goran Bregovic, well-known Serbian film. I think he's Serbian anyway, or maybe he might be Croatian. And this is a movie, I think I might have seen it years ago. It's a movie about gypsies in the Balkans, and there's a big kind of Balkan gypsy influence to this soundtrack. So there you go. Oh yeah. Again, another album which doesn't need an introduction. Music from the Big Pink by the band. Yeah, I really don't need to go into that. I'm sure you're all. Most of you probably have it on vinyl, but certainly it was worth grabbing on CD as well. And finally, as part of that haul, Passion and Grace, John McLaughlin, Ay de Mielo, and Paco de Lucia. So John McLaughlin you're all familiar with. This is a kind of a flamenco influenced album which he recorded with those other two artists in the early 80s, 83 I think. So this is obviously a slightly later CD reissue. Came out on Philips. Oh yeah, just a few more. This I picked up. Yeah, this was actually sealed when I picked it up. Louis Stewart and Jim Doherty. Now, Louis Stewart and Jim Doherty, two grand old men of Irish jazz. Louis Stewart sadly passed away last year. Yeah, he's a very accomplished Irish jazz guitarist. I know Ben Costello was a big fan, and you got to see him live a few times. I have a feeling this must have been sold at his gigs. This only came out in 2013, but it was sealed when I came across it in a charity shop. So yeah, very nice album, very nice little jazz album from two very talented musicians, Louis Stewart and Jim Doherty, and it's called Tunes. Now these two I found at the same time, I think on the same day, maybe. Bonny Prince Billy, I See a Darkness. Yeah, superb album, and again I think it's one that you probably don't really need much of an introduction to. This came out in 1999. He has recorded under so many different names, but I suppose Bonny Prince Billy is the one that he's probably best known for. Will Oldham is his real name. This came out on the Domino label. back in 1999. Yeah, it's an album that I think probably introduced him to quite a larger audience, I suppose. But still kind of a kind of a cult figure. Really, this is kind of Americana, I suppose. I don't know what you quite call it, country, but yeah, kind of dark, weird country, I suppose. Bonny Prince Billy, I See a Darkness. Now the next find I was really happy with. Now this is on a label called Trunk Records. Trunk, it's a British label, active since the 90s, which specialises in reissuing things like library music, kind of music that's been neglected, cult kind of TV and film tunes, music from old forgotten public information films, music from porn films, stuff like that. This is the reissue of the soundtrack to a British science fiction series from the 1970s called The Tomorrow People. Now, the series ran in the 70s, but this music was actually recorded as library music in the late 60s by, among others, Delia Derbyshire, who was responsible for the Doctor Who theme and was part of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. Also, what else is on this? Oh yeah, Dudley Simpson and Brian Hodgson, plus David Vorhaus. David Vorhaus collaborated with Delia Derbyshire on the White Lightning album, which came out in 1969. Now this is yeah, so this is very much kind of, if you're familiar with the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, this is very much in that vein. It's kind of electronic moog, very creepy, kind of incidental music. The main theme music appears in this, and also there's a lot of incidental music which appeared in the series. So there's a lot of kind of weird, creepy, kind of mood music used in this, and I'm very pleased to find this because yeah, Trunk Records, at least vinyl anyway, they tend to be released in very limited numbers, and a lot of them have become very collectible and very hard to find in the wild. This is my first addition to my collection on the Trunk label, so I'm very pleased to find that. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Those are recent, well, over the last few months, charity shop CD finds, so hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back to the vinyl again next time, I think.